A hinge groans like an old man in pain, and the door gives way to a breath of light. The torches spill their glow across the floor, touching stains that have soaked into the wood through years of spilt ale, years of silent quarrels and half-forgotten laughter. The wind, sharp and full of ice, presses in for a heartbeat, and then the door closes again, closing the storm like a beast at bay. Inside, the air is thick. It tastes of damp wool, of stale smoke, of bodies too long kept close. Every rafter bows under the weight of that heat. The murmur of voices gathers like a tide, each word lost in another, until it becomes a single, low sound that seems to hold the walls in place. The room is crowded with those who live by chance and weather, merchants with frost in their beards, soldiers who carry scars that no one asks about, hunters with mud drying in stiff patches on their boots. They all sit close to the fire, their lives drawn together tonight, because beyond these walls, the storm claws at the world, tearing the night to pieces. Through this press of bodies comes a boy. Snow still clings to his cloak, turning to water as it touches the heat. He slips between elbows and tankards, his small hand gripping something hidden tight against his chest. The breath leaves him in thin threads of mist, curling in the flicker of torchlight, vanishing before anyone notices. No one here looks up. They are too weary, too used to strangers. He has walked a long road tonight, not only because of hunger, not only because of the cold. There is something else pulling him forward. A whisper of an old promise, an old secret that waits somewhere in this room. Perhaps at a table, perhaps in a pair of eyes he has not yet found. The music softens and swells. A lute, its strings worn thin, struggles to keep a tune that smells of the earth, a song of graves and weddings, of hands that meet once and that are lost. Tankards rise and fall. Dice skip and clatter across the wood like small bones. And in the corner, the innkeeper bends his heavy shoulders, pours from a barrel, and let the ale run dark and foamy into waiting cups. The scent of it fills the room, warm and heavy, mixing with another smell, metallic, faint, blood still clinging to the boots of a man sitting silent in shadow. The boy stands by the door. He sees them all. He studies every face. The farmers, with hands red from cold, the traders who carry their lives on the road, the sellswords who wear death like a cloak. His eyes search as though his life depends upon it, and perhaps it does. Behind him, the storm thickens. The wind howls around the inn and beats against the shutters. The road that carried him here is gone now, swallowed by snow and by night. Even the wolves have not braved this weather. A crack runs through the music. The lute falters, one note broken. And in that moment of fragile silence, a pause so thin you could cut it with a whisper, he feels it. The turn, the story is beginning. To change, he steps forward. No one notices him yet, but the air has moved. He can feel the secret waiting. Somewhere in the glow of these torches, in the weight of these walls, in the hush that comes before a voice speaks. Outside, the storm presses. Its face to the windows, its claws scraping, its breath clouding the glass. But inside, time begins to slow down, and in the stillness, he knows that by the end of this night, nothing will be the same. He takes another step, into the warmth, into the light, into a world that has been waiting for him all along. Somewhere ahead, a voice will rise to greet him, and with it, another part of this city's long and wounded song will begin. The wind claws at the tavern, its fingers scraping the shutters, making them rattle like loose bones in a grave. It howls through the cracks, and with every gust the wooden walls seem to hold their breath. Inside, the air is thick and low. Smoke lingers beneath the blackened beams, curling around hair and cloth until everything smells of it. Every plank of the floor remembers the weight of boots. Every table remembers the weight of hunger. At the far wall, away from the largest fire, 4 travelers sit close together. Their cloaks are damp, their faces are raw from the wind and cold. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes and a scar running pale and thin beneath her. JOW holds a dagger in her hands. The whetstone hisses softly as it bites against the blade. That sound cuts the room in two, a thin whisper of iron over stone, the promise of steel waiting. Before her, a candle burns. Its wax spills slowly, white as fallen snow, pooling over the iron holder like a frozen stream. She does not look up. Her eyes are fixed on the edge she shapes. Her companions speak around her, their words low and careful, in the dialect of a province that does not belong here. The syllables are strange to the ears of the locals, like the call of birds from another shore dot near the hearth. The innkeeper's daughter moves quietly. Her hands, chapped and red from work, gather empty bowls one by one. She does not speak, but her head tilts, listening. Every word is a thread to her, threads that might weave a warning if she is patient enough to hear. She carries the bowls away, her bare feet light on the boards, her eyes never rising to meet those of the strangers. The fire, swollen with the day's last log, shifts suddenly. Wood cracks and a piece collapses into glowing ash. Sparks leap into the air, golden and wild, before falling back into the slow burn. For a moment, the whole room brightens, and the strangers' faces glow like masks caught between shadow and flame dot in a darkened corner. Two old men argue. Their voices are low but sure, the soft, rounded tongue of shepherds, a language that rolls like water over stones, slow and constant. The sound of a life measured by seasons, not kings. Their hands, knotted as tree roots, gesture sharply, as if the shape of their words alone could keep the world from changing. Outside, the storm leans harder on the walls. Snow lashes the shutters and builds against the door. The tavern creaks, but it stands, its heavy beams and walls of oak holding the night back. In this small, dim-lit world, everything narrows to the sound of voices, the scrape of iron, the weight of waiting. The hours stretch long, so long that time itself begins to soften, losing its edge. Above, a door opens with a sound like a sigh. The stairs groan beneath boots. There is a slow shuffle of someone seeking sleep in a strange room. And with that sound comes the smell of straw mattresses, of tallow candles burning low, of 100 nights spent by travelers who rose with the dawn and were never seen again. Down below, the woman's blade gleams. Her hand is steady now. She sets the whetstone aside and runs her thumb along the edge, feeling the sharpness she has made. The candlelight dances on the steel, and in her eyes there is a glimmer, something not yet spoken, something waiting, like a spark hidden deep inside. The coals, the girl with the bowls pauses in the shadows of the kitchen door. She watches, and though she does not know what has brought these four to this place, she feels it, the pull of something coming closer. Outside, the wind howls again, but within these walls there's a strange stillness, as if the storm has been waiting not for the house, but for the moment when these faces would gather under one roof. Somewhere in the quiet above the rafters, a single flake of snow slips through a crack and melts on the floor without a sound. And beneath it all, beneath the mutter of voices, beneath the rattle of shutters, the tavern listens. It knows that by morning, this place will remember what happens. Tonight. And outside, the road to the next chapter is already buried in snow. A gust of wind flings the door wider, and the boy slips further in, pressing it close behind him with a soft thud. The room exhales in the glow of the hearth. Boots, thick with mud and snow, line the walls like sleeping beasts. Dogs, ribs sharp beneath their fur, lie curled beneath benches, ears twitching to dreams only they can hear. The air is thick with the hum of life, low voices threading through smoke and ale. But as he steps forward, the old lute begins again. A fragile tune rises, hesitant as a bird afraid of leaving its branch, but steady, woven from notes that belong to hills and valleys far beyond this place, where the rivers run slow and the wind speaks in softer tones. Its music drifts between the tables, a pale silver thread, pulling the room into a quiet rhythm. By the wall, a hunter sits alone. His cloak is crusted with ice. His bow rests against the wood beside him, its strings slack with rain. He rubs at an old scar across his knuckles, a mark from a wound so long healed it should have been forgotten. But such scars never leave. His eyes follow the boy, not with threat, but with a stillness that comes from long days of waiting, from nights spent listening to the world breathe. He says nothing. At another table, a merchant bends over a small pile of silver. The coins slip from his fingers one by one, each clink a sharp note against the soft rain outside. His hands are heavy with rings, his cloak rich with the faint, dry scent of saffron, of journeys that stretched beyond mountains to roads where few men dare to walk. His lips move in silent counting, as if in the sound of silver there is comfort, a promise no storm can take away. The servant boy slips between them, a tray balanced carefully in his hands. Bread, thick and dark, still warm from the coals. Cheese, hard and sharp, cracked at the edges. The plates are chipped, but polished with care, and when the food is set down, there's a hush of gratitude so small it barely reaches the ear. It is a simple meal, yet on nights like these, when the cold presses close and the roads are lost beneath snow, even coarse bread tastes like mercy. Pipe smoke rolls across the ceiling in long, slow waves, clinging to the beams like cobwebs. Drifts low enough to catch in the hair of those who speak. Men raise their mugs. The dull shine of ale trembles with the sound of the lute. In one corner, a child laughs in sleep, curled against his mother's side. Ignore hunger or fear for a little while. Outside, the storm churns and claws. Rain slashes against the shutters, spits through the cracks. From far away, faint and uncertain, comes the toll of a bell. It rings once, a hollow sound drowned by the wind, but still heard, as if the earth itself had called out. And then, for a single breath, the tavern stills. The tune of the lute hangs in the air like a held note. Voices fade. Even the fire seems to quiet its hiss, its bright heart folding in upon itself. The boy stands there, small and silent, his fingers curled around the thing he carries close. Every face seems turned slightly toward him now, though no one has yet spoken. It is a thin thread of a moment, a space between breaths where the weight of the world pauses, as if the very night itself has pressed its ear against the walls, listening. And then the music begins again, soft, searching, drawing the air back into motion, and the boy steps deeper into the room, toward the table where his story waits. In the shadowed rafters above, the tavern listens too, holding on to the sound of that single bell, and to the footsteps of a boy who has brought a secret with him through the storm. What he carries will break the quiet, but not yet, for now the room exhales and the door behind him shuts out the dark. A single candle burns low at the top of the stair, its flame leaning whenever the wind sighs through the gaps in the roof. The boards beneath it bend with age, and the walls, thin as a pilgrim's ribs, hold the night inside as if it were a living thing. Up here the air is colder. It smells of old straw, of boots left too close to the fire long ago, and of the faint, sharp scent of oiled wood. The noise from below rises only as a murmur now, blurred voices carrying the slow rhythm of ale. But in this hallway there is another sound, the breathing of sleepers, the rustle of cloth on boards, and the creak of a beam that answers back, not with weight, but with memory. In the first narrow room, a woman sits on the edge of a bed. Her cloak is stitched with foreign threads, colors pulled from far-off markets where spices turn the air to gold. She pulls the laces from her boots with quiet hands, her shoulders stiff, and places a short dagger beside her as carefully as another might place a prayer. The steel catches the candlelight, and for a moment it seems alive. In the room beyond her, an old monk kneels on the bare boards, his hands clasped, his lips barely moving. The prayer he whispers is not meant to be heard. It is worn and private, spoken into the wood as if the floor itself were listening. Behind him, the shadow of a wooden cross falls long across the wall, and the wind from the cracks stirs the hem of his robe. A door stands ajar at the far end. Inside, a peddler sits with his back to the wind. His hands, shaped by years of roads and markets, unwrap a cloth bundle in the dark. Little things glimmer in his lap: beads, pins, small mirrors dulled with fingerprints. He checks them one by one, counting quietly to himself, not for greed, but for the comfort of knowing they are still his when so much else is not. The hallway itself seems to breathe. It stretches long under the sagging roof, its lantern cast in gold at the base of the stairs where no one stands. The boy has not climbed here. He knows these rooms only in the way one knows the presence of a door one is not yet ready to open. But the stairs wait for him, silent, watching. Down below, the tavern hums with its low tide of life. The clink of tankards, the song of the lute, the rough laughter. All of it softened now, as if the boards themselves are keeping it back for those who need this quiet. And then, from above, a sound. A long creak, slow, unhurried, the sound of wood remembering. It is not the weight of a footstep, not quite. It is something else, a stretch of timber that has carried 1,000 steps before and will carry 1,000 more. For a moment, the flame in the lantern flickers and steadies again. The house settles into itself, its walls full of stories. No one speaks aloud. And beneath it all, as the wind presses at the shutters and the rain needles the roof, the boy stands at the base of those stairs, still below. With his hand resting on the rail, he does not move, not yet. The night holds its breath with him, waiting to see if he will choose to climb, and what will be waiting for him if he does. Above, a door closes softly, and in that sound, a new thread of the story begins to pull tight. The first sound is not music. It is the wind, clawing at the shutters, dragging its long nails across the wood as if to tear the door from its hinges. Each gust comes with a howl that drowns thought, a voice so wide and so empty that it feels like the breath of something ancient moving over the earth. Then the door shakes, its iron fittings groaning in protest, and the snow slips in beneath, a thin, white ghost creeping across the floor. The innkeeper swears softly, takes another heavy log from the pile, and pushes it into the fire. The blaze answers with a roar, and sparks leap upward, small creatures of light caught in a trap. And through that storm, at last, two figures come. Their cloaks are sodden, their boots caked with snow and frozen mud. The cold has burned their faces pale, and their fingers shake from the weight of the wind. One carries a fiddle, its wooden body wrapped in a thin, worn cloth. The other cradles a small drum, the skin stretched tight, its rim dulled with travel. When the door closes behind them and the noise of the wind is left outside, the room exhales as though a burden has been set down. Every face turns, just for a moment. Strangers, yes, but they carry something rare on nights like this, a thread of music, and the promise of voices other than the storm. They are given a corner near the fire. Their cloaks hang heavy, dripping, and steam rises where the heat touches them. A bowl of stew is placed before them, dark bread beside it. The steam curls like a blessing, and they eat fast, not from greed, but from the hunger that comes when the body has been too long in the teeth of winter. Around them, the tavern settles. The murmur of talk grows low, and the dogs near the benches stop stirring. Even the hunter, silent in his solitude, lifts his head. The merchant's coins stop clinking. The boy, with his hands clasped tight around a cup of something that only barely holds warmth, edges nearer. The drum speaks first. Single beat, hollow and slow, like a heart trying to remember its rhythm. Then again. The sound rolls across the floorboards and climbs the beams, filling the spaces between the storm and a steady roar of fire. The fiddle follows. Its voice is thin at first, trembling like a bird on a branch in the cold wind, but it holds on. The bow moves again, and the note bends, soft at first, then stronger, spinning a thread of sound that wins. Between tables and mugs and the smell of wet wool. It is a tune that does not belong to this room. It belongs to mountains far away, to narrow passes where the snow hides the path, to villages smaller than a breath where the stars feel close enough to touch. It carries a longing, and in that longing, the tavern finds a strange, deep silence. Boy listens as if the music has been waiting for him. His fingers loosen on the cup. The warmth that barely reached him before now spreads, not from the drink, but from the sound that fills the hollow in him, left by hunger and fear and something older still. Around him, people listen. The old men who argued now sit without words, their heads lowered. The merchant closes his hand around his coins, holding them still, and the hunter lets his bow slide against the wall, forgotten for the moment. Even the woman with the scar, her knife still beside her, stops sharpening its edge. The drum grows softer, its beat steady as footsteps in snow. The fiddle's notes climb higher, thinner, until they feel like threads of light stretched out across a dark valley. And in those notes for a while, the storm no longer matters. The road, the hunger, the fear, they are far away. Only the fire moves now. Only the music. The boy leans closer to the table. His eyes follow the bow, as if the sound itself were a map showing him a way forward. Outside, the snow continues its long work of burying the world. But inside, the tavern becomes something else. The walls seem to lean inward, to guard the music, and the rafters bend like old men listening. For a little while, this place is no longer a shelter from the storm. It is the heart of something fragile, kept alive by trembling hands and the courage of a tune that will not stop. And so the music plays on, until even the wind seems to pause to hear it. It is in this hush, this delicate balance between fire and snow, that the next turning of the story waits, quiet as a breath before a word is spoken. A sudden laugh cracks the heavy air like a branch breaking in the forest. It comes from a table near the center of the room, rough and deep, the voice of a man who has not laughed for a long time. For a moment, even the wind seems to hesitate at the door. Then his companions join him, teasing, nudging his shoulder, their own laughter rising in uneven waves as if they must learn again how to do it. Cups are lifted. Wood meets wood with a hollow sound, and the smell of ale rises, sharp and earthy, mixing with the tang of smoke and the faint, wet scent of wool drying by the fire. A little warmth blooms in that sound, brief as a spark that catches for an instant before falling back into darkness. The boy watches. He does not blink. Every face becomes a question. Every gesture is a sign. He sees the smallest things as if they were written for him alone. He sees the dog first, its ribs like a prayer beneath its fur, as it nudges with a careful nose at the heel of a man's boot, waiting for a crust of bread. He sees the woman by the wall, her hair heavy with damp, fingers smoothing the strands as if they might press the day out of it. A soldier sits near the fire, mud falling in dry flakes from his boots as he wipes them with a rag, his hands slow, as though the weight of the miles still drags at his arm. The room speaks in small languages, in the way hands move, in the way a shoulder turns to shield a secret. The boy tries to read them all. From the far end of the hall comes another sound. Quick and bright, a game has begun. Carved bone dice roll across the table, their clatter like stones dropped into a shallow stream. They strike wood, bounce, settle. Each throw is met with a murmur, hope, disappointment, the quiet counting of chance. Men lean close, their faces lit by the faint glow of tallow candles, as if fire might tell them the future. The lute, soft and slow, has faded into the corners of the room now. What fills the air is the noise of lives pressing against the cold, all of them gathered for a night where the world outside is kept at bay only by walls of oak, and the wish for company. The boy stands as though made of stone. He waits. The thing he came for is somewhere here, Not a thing, not a coin or a meal, but a face, a word, a truth that belongs to him. But in this weave of strangers, it hides. He sees only fragments. A scar, a hand, a mouth whispering near another ear. The answers he wants are covered by shadows, and so he waits. Like a shadow himself, silent, watching. The laughter rises once more, then breaks into smaller pieces like ice cracking on a river. The dice roll again, and the storm outside presses. Harder, rattling the shutters so the fire quivers on the stove. And there, between those two sounds, the wind and the dice, the boy feels something turn. It is as though the night itself has leaned closer to him. Soon, in this room where every stranger holds a story, he will find the one that belongs to him. But for now, he stands still, and the storm writes its long hand across the door, waiting to be let in. Somewhere above, a single board creaks, and the night shifts. Outside, the storm has taken the road, covered it with a white that swallows shape and sound. The path that led here is gone. What remains of the world beyond these walls is only a blind, unbroken drift of snow. The inn stands alone now, an island in endless sea. Its timbers shake under the weight of the wind as though the night itself were trying to tear it apart. The shutters rattle like teeth, and each gust strikes with the force of a fist dot in the stables, where the light of a single lantern shivers against the beams. The horses stamp and toss their heads, their breath rising like smoke, their flanks wet with fear. A boy no older than 12 moves among them, throwing handfuls of straw with hands that are cracked and red from cold. Each movement is quick, but his eyes are fixed on the open dark beyond the half-frozen door. Somewhere out there, thin and aching as a blade, a wolf's call rises. Another answers, farther away, and the sound is lost in the snow rush. The boy grips the edge of the door, pulls it shut, and the lantern flickers out inside the tavern. It is another kind of storm. The air is thick. Too many bodies pressed too close, the heat of their breath rising to stain the rafters. The smell of smoke and ale has sunk into the wood itself, old as the floor beneath their boots. The candles burn lower now. Their light wavers, and the wax bends down the iron sconces like the backs of men who have carried too much for too long. The boy who came in from the road sits, very still near the fire. He does not know how late it is, only that the world outside no longer exists. The snow has closed around them like a tomb. Every hour inside has grown slower, thicker, as if time itself cannot move beyond these walls. He feels the press of the room, the scrape of benches against the floor, the hiss of the logs as they burn down, the closeness of strangers whose stories touch but do not meet. In this room, there are no windows in the world, only the weight of it pressing close, and the sense that everyone here has run from something that waits just beyond the snow. The boy watches them all. He sees the frost melting in the folds of their cloaks, the hands that grip cups as though a little heat might hold the night at bay. He wonders if any of them hear the wolves. He wonders if they are afraid, but the room does not speak of fear. It speaks of waiting, of lives caught between places, between battles and fields, between the bitter wind and the slow passing of hours. And in that waiting, he feels the beginning of something. It is small, silent, but it grows like a seed in the dark earth of the room. Somewhere above, a beam groans. The storm tightens its hand on the roof. Walls responds with a soft, long sigh. And still the boy sits, watching, knowing that in a night buried so deep in snow, the world has been stripped to its smallest truths. Fire and cold, hunger and hope. He wonders what the dawn will bring, if dawn will come at all, or if this white sea outside means they are already adrift in something endless. For now he waits, and the wind moves around the inn like the voice of something ancient, calling, calling, but never coming in. The storm does not let go. The door opens with a sound like a blade drawn from its sheath. A gust of snow sweeps in, scattering sparks from the hearth, and in the sudden cold, Every voice falters. Through that doorway steps a man, older, heavy with years that do not come from the weight of days alone, but from things that cannot be. Spoken aloud. Snow clings to his shoulders as if it has always known where he would come to rest. He does not remove his gloves, does not speak. He stands in the stormlight a moment, and then the door shuts behind him, and the storm becomes a sound outside of walls once more. The room looks at him, and then away. There is a kind of sorrow that people know when they see it. It hangs on him like a second cloak, and no one wishes to brush against it. So they drink and pretend, but the air has changed. He moves as though the years themselves have carved their marks into his bones. Each step is slow, not from weakness, but from a man who has learned to listen for the floor beneath him. His eyes search the room, not for warmth, not for fire, but for a ghost. The boy watches from the low bench near the fire. His cup is warm in his hands, but his fingers tremble. All the waiting that has filled this night has come to a single heartbeat. The man's face comes into the light of the hearth, a map of time. Scars faint beneath the skin, creases deep as valleys, eyes like weathered stone. There is no smile there, only the long ache of someone who has walked too far in the dark. And then, for a moment that is as thin as a candle flame, their eyes meet. It is not a greeting. It is not a surprise. It is something older. Recognition. A question, too quiet for words. Something that leaps like a spark between them, though neither of them moves. The lute stops. Its last note hangs in the smoke-heavy air, trembling like the last leaf of a winter tree. In that pause, the tavern holds its breath. Tankards hang in midair. The dice on the table do not roll. Even the fire seems to lean forward, listening. For the space of a few heartbeats, all that exists is that look. The boy with frost still in his hair, the man with snow melting on his shoulders, and then the world exhales, voices return, though softer now, as if afraid to break whatever thread has pulled itself taut between the two of them. The boy does not drink. He does not look away. The storm outside rages unseen, but inside, another storm begins to turn. The man chooses a table in the shadow. He sits without a word. Only his gloves move, slow, careful, as though his hands are not his own. The boy rises, though he does not. Yet no, he is standing. The room tilts. Everything else is gone now. The laughter, the songs, the weight of so many strangers. The air between them is a road. And he knows, though no word has been spoken, that this road will not wait for him long. Somewhere above, a shutter slams against the wall. The wolves call again from far beyond the snow. But it is a different kind of hunger that moves in the boy's chest now. The fire crackles, and the night leans closer. The boy takes a step, just one, and the room listens. It knows that something has begun. Something that no storm, no wall, and no silence can keep from happening. And in that quiet moment, as if the whole world has narrowed to one single line between them, the story bends toward what must come next. A log collapses in the hearth with a sigh. The sparks rise, drifting like red ash into the smoke-thick air. The night has settled heavily over the tavern. It is the slowest hour, the deep turning of darkness before the first thought of dawn. The boy stands. No one tells him to. No one sees him go. The empty cup remains on the bench, a faint circle of warmth still clinging to its rim, but his hands are free now. Empty, except for the thing he has carried in his heart all this way. He moves carefully, step by step through the closeness of bodies, past boots caked with mud, past the muttering soldiers and the merchant with his rings, past the singers with their thin fiddle and trembling hands. The fire hisses where the wet wood smolders. It throws long arms of shadow up the walls, so that the beams seem to sway above him like blackened trees in a winter forest. The boy does not look at them. His eyes are fixed on the table at the far side of the room. on the man who sits alone. Snow still melting from his shoulders. When he reaches the table, he slows. One hand, small and rough with cold, touches the edge of the wood. The grain of it is scarred from years of knives, from the weight of elbows that have leaned there in silence and in anger. And then the tavern begins to vanish. The voices fade. The rolling dice stop their sound. The music has been silent since the man came in, but even the breathing of the room falls away. There is only the wind, the banging of a loose shutter, a candle that sputters and goes out, leaving a thin thread of smoke to twist upward like a question. The boy swallows once, and the world waits. When he speaks, his first word is soft. So soft it might be mistaken for a thought, for the start of a prayer. But the older man hears it. His head lifts. The shadow of his hood falls back a little, and his eyes, cold as a winter river, find the boy standing there. Something shifts across his face. Not surprising, not even recognition, not yet. But something. And with that word, a word that no one else in the room understands, a word as simple as the closing of a door. The distance between them collapses. In that moment, the storm outside presses its ear against the wall, as though the wind itself is listening. The boy stands still, waiting for what will come next. The man looks at him. For a long moment he does nothing, as if the years behind him are too heavy to move. Then his gloved hand moves, slow and uncertain, to the empty chair across from him. The boy sees this, and he knows. He pulls the chair out. The wood groans on the floor. He sits, the fire behind him throwing light across both their faces. It is a small table, and it becomes, for this moment, the whole world. Above them, the beams hold steady. Outside, the storm claws at the door, but it will not break tonight. Inside, two lives, so far apart until this hour, lean toward each other like trees bent by the same wind. Their voices have not yet told their story, but already something has begun. And as the camera draws away, leaving them at that table with the firelight trembling on their faces, we follow the smoke that curls upward, up past the beams, into the dark above the rafters, where the night breathes again. The boy has spoken. The man has heard, and so the next chapter begins. A single log cracks in the hearth, a hollow sound that seems to split the silence like a seam. The fire sinks low, but its glow still clings to the faces gathered around it, turning skin to gold, and eyes to pieces of glass. The hour has no name. It is neither night nor morning, only that gray hush that waits before dawn. The storm still claws at the shutters, its white hands scraping along the walls, but no one listens to it now. Its fury is held outside, beyond the thick boards of the tavern. Here, the world is small, and in this smallness, everything that matters is contained. The boy's voice lingers in the air, thin, uncertain, and the older man's silence hangs beside it like a shadow that cannot be touched. No one else dares to speak. Somewhere, the lute begins again. It does not rush. It does not try to fill the space. It plays only a few notes, as though testing whether the night will allow it. The notes float upward, fragile and pale, and seem to settle in the rafters where the smoke gathers, weaving sound and shadow into something that feels almost like prayer. Around the fire, life approaches warmth. A soldier with mud dried on his boots. A merchant whose rings no longer shine. Both singers hold their instruments like fragile children. And a boy who has crossed the storm for reasons only he knows. Each face is lit, each face different, but all share the same tired hunger for a thing they cannot name. The storm moves over the roof, a dull roar, and the wind tries the latch of the door again. It finds no way in. Upstairs, the rooms have grown still. Some sleep. Some lie awake, staring at the dark beams above them, counting the groans of the wood, waiting for the moment when the world outside becomes safe again. But down here, in the heart of the tavern, night bends around one table. The boy and the man do not look away from one another. It is as if time has found a knot and is pulling tight. The man's eyes are worn from years of loss. They carry roads behind them and the memory of places no one speaks of anymore. He has been waiting for nothing for so long that he has forgotten what waiting feels like, until this. The boy's voice was a spark. And now in the quiet, he waits for that spark to either fade or set something burning that cannot be put out. The music trembles. The snow presses harder. The candles are half their height now, their wax folded like tired spines. If anyone could see beyond the walls, they would see how the world has changed in this hour. The road is gone, the fields are buried, and the tavern stands like a lantern. On an island of snow, its faint glow is the only color left in a white and endless world. But inside, where the fire still breathes, something has begun to take shape. A story, a promise, or a wound. No one here knows which. By the time the dawn comes, and pale light spills across these tables, this night will already have slipped into the long river of memory. And all of this, the boy, the man, the faces around the fire, the music, that shakes like a thin candle flame, will seem as fragile as breath on glass. But for now, the night holds steady. For now, the boy leans closer, and the man listens. Outside, the storm howls one last time, and then it moves further into the hills, searching for another roof to break. The tavern exhales. The lute's last note fades. And somewhere in the hush, something invisible binds these hours together, knotting them so they will not be forgotten. The snow keeps falling. The night will end soon. And when it does, the world will never be the same. Not for the boy. Not for the man. Not for anyone who sat in the circle of that fire. It is the kind of night that marks a beginning. Though none of them, not even the boy, knows what kind of beginning it will be. The first line of dawn waits, just beyond the storm. And as the camera drifts upward, leaving the glow of the tavern behind, the sky ahead begins to pale, and the sound of the wind becomes the sound of the next chapter waiting to be told.